to have a conversation with you about creating content that inspires buyers, the marketing and sales conundrum. Today I have two folks with me for the conversation. I'll have them give a little bit of background on themselves. I'm Jill Rowley, at Jill_Rowley on Twitter. And we can use the hashtag social selling for the topic today. Tweet us live. This is a live presentation, a live conversation. Joining me today, Cameron, if you could give us a little bit of your background, that would be great.
Sure, thanks, Jill. Good to have everyone here. Thanks for taking some time to join. I'm Cameron Brain, located here in Utah, which is why I'm wearing this cold vest right now. Co-founder and CEO of Everyone Social, and basically a social selling platform used by larger B2B organizations. So in part, we help a lot of sales teams and salespeople individually find content that is relevant for them in their role, and we'll talk a little bit about that further, I think.
Thanks, Cameron, for joining us from sunny, cold Utah.
Absolutely.
Gaelle, where are you dialing in from? And please give us some background on yourself.
Hey, hello. I'm very happy to be there. Actually, I'm coming from Belgium, and I am in Belgium, Brussels, right now. So that's the reason perhaps it's pretty dark behind me, because it's yes, almost 8 o'clock p.m. So my name is Gaelle, and I'm actually a social selling expert. I'm associate at Minds & More, and actually Minds & More, we are collaborating very closely with Sales for Life, the company who has actually this proven social selling methodology. And
Great, thanks for joining us, Gaelle. I am super excited to have you today as well. Do you have a Twitter handle?
Yes.
What's your Twitter handle so that if people want to tweet to you during today's session?
Helsmo1, Helsmo01, HELSMO01.
Great, thank you. And Cameron, did you give us your Twitter handle?
Yeah, I'm just Cameron Brain, at Cameron Brain, and I've already sent out a couple tweets, so please feel free to tweet directly.
Awesome, hashtag social selling. So I didn't actually say who I am. I'm Jill Rowley. I am a sales professional trapped in a marketer's body. I sold software at Salesforce and Eloqua for a combined 12 years. Now I evangelize digital sales transformation, of which social selling is a component. And I really focus on the blurring lines and the blended roles of sales and marketing, and really a champion for sales enablement as a function within the organization to be the bridge or the glue between marketing and sales, to really bring those two much more closely together and align around more meaningful metrics, which are more full funnel metrics and revenue marketing. But today's conversation is really going to be focused on content and the content conundrum. And I've got some specific questions. I definitely recommend anyone participating to tweet us and chat us your questions as well. But first, I wanted to start with a high-level question. And Gaelle, if you could go first answering, what's the role of content? Why does anybody care about content? What is all the talk about content? Give us your perspective, your 30,000-foot view perspective of content.
Well, actually, the big role of content is to give information to the buyers. So actually what is very key is that the buyers actually look at all the content that is available and eventually said, okay, the person who is sharing this content, that's a person who will be able to give added value to me. I want to actually get in contact with him in order to buy what I want to buy. So according to me, content, the meaning of it, the objective is that it's to give information to the potential buyers, and of course for the salespersons who share the content, is to be seen as an expert.
Excellent. Cameron, anything to add, or do you want to challenge Gaelle?
Well, it's a little early for a challenge, I think. We'll get there in a few minutes. Yeah, no, I think from our end, obviously in the year 2017 now, there are just so many different channels where buyers can be found. In particular in the B2B context, it's obviously no longer just face-to-face or phone or even something like email, but even including email with, you know, some of these more social channels, content is just kind of the thing that you can share, right? I mean, it's a way to better develop a relationship with someone, to you know, to nurture someone, much in the way that, you know, marketers have done with content marketing for many years now. So you know, we see it as a critical part of really any salesperson being effective in this day and age.
So let me ask you a question directly related to, you just said content is part of how any salesperson in today's age is effective. Should salespeople be creating content?
Well, I think that's a good question. I mean, you know, so what we see is we have, you know, we have a bit over 70 companies on our platform, many of whom are quite large, you know, Dell, HP, Adobe, et cetera. Tens of thousands of users, many of whom are sales users. And so we have a little bit more macro perspective on kind of what people are sharing and what's working, you know, beyond kind of the individual, but, you know, at a group level. And we definitely see things like, and things that we try and encourage people to do is, at minimum, personalize their communications, which, you know, maybe is getting a little bit into the weeds, but kind of to your point of like creating content, I guess I would say is that, you know, although you might immediately think something like creating a blog post or a video or something like that, even just taking the step of like creating an original post or some commentary around something that you're sharing, you know, that can have a huge impact on how the people you're sharing it with actually engage with it, be it a number of people on it, you know, your public profile like on LinkedIn, or an individual prospect that you might be sharing it with.
Yeah, so I was on a call this morning with a gentleman at a pretty small boutique consulting company, and he is actually not allowed to publish his own content under his own brand. He is only allowed to share company branded content and not really even third-party content. Is Cameron, in your view, and Gaelle too, I'm actually curious, what do you think about that? Do you think that salespeople should be restricted?
What does this consulting firm do? Yeah, I mean, it's I mean, I would say, you know, a couple of years ago when we started working with companies, kind of in the earlier days of Everyone Social, you know, we definitely come across those in more restrictive industries like financial services and whatnot, you know, who maybe were looking to better enable their salespeople, but at the same time, you know, put so many rules on it that it didn't even make sense in a lot of ways. You know, like, okay, if you want to share something, you can only ever share what we tell you to share, and you can't add your own commentary, and, you know, don't even think about like crossing the wire of a you know, your personal brand with, you know, your work profile and whatnot. And we very rarely see that anymore. And, you know, and again, I think, I know you're familiar with obviously Genesis out of the Bay Area and their social selling efforts. And, you know, I think one of the things that they've done right, just as an example, is they've really made sure that their sales enablement program is focused on really harnessing the personal styles of their salespeople. I mean, they have a global sales force, like a lot of companies, people all around the world, and, you know, there's just a lot of different habits and channels and content and so forth in different markets. And so, you know, rather than saying, well, we're sitting here in San Bruno, and, you know, if you're in Kuala Lumpur or, you know, London or whatever, you have to conform to these exact standards. They've been much looser, given much more leeway to the salespeople to do what the salespeople think is right for their market and their prospects. And, you know, they've had absolutely no issues and a lot of success. And you know, across the board, I can say, when you give people flexibility because it's tied to their job, they're inherently disinterested from doing anything bad. You know, like, we've never seen anything bad in the 3+ years that we've worked with larger companies. So.
Yeah, good. Gaelle, what do you think? Should salespeople be creating their own content? Should they be allowed to curate content? What is the role? What should salespeople be able to do with content?
Okay, well, regarding to my what I've seen with companies, B2B, B2C companies, mainly in Belgium, in France, well, actually, I definitely think that the branded content should indeed be done by marketing. It doesn't mean that they have to do it alone. It means that to be consistent with the brand image, with the positioning of the company, of the products, it's very important that the branded content should be done by the marketing. I think it's the base of the content strategy of an organization. But of course, when this company is doing editorial meetings, because when you are there to begin really to create content strategy, you organize monthly or weekly editorial meetings, it's very important that someone, a salesperson or two salespersons are there too, because they will give very great inputs of what are the gaps in the markets, what are the main concerns in the markets, what are trends. So I think they really need to be part of the co-creation, of the creation perhaps of the branded content. And of course, I totally agree with Cameron. They should as well curate their own content. So I think that's key. And of course, they should be guided, because I can understand that some organizations perhaps have fear that their salespersons are going to share or to give or to say things that should not be allowed or are not in line with the company policy or whatever. But definitely there are solutions. They can be guided, they can be trained, but it's very important that each salesperson has, of course, next to this branded content, its own content and its own personality to deploy.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in agreement. So I think, company branded content is generated and approved by the company. I absolutely think sales professionals should be curating. I'm down with OPC. Yeah, you know me. I'm down with other people's content. I think they should be curating other people's content. But I even take it a step farther. And I say, why don't, excuse me, if you're trying to get into Accenture produces an incredible amount of content. And if you're a salesperson trying to engage Accenture in a conversation, why not use their content to get their attention? So share on LinkedIn or on Twitter Accenture's content and comment on the quality or the value or the insights from their content. And now you're using your customers or your potential customers' content to get their attention. That really goes along my theory and my theme and my philosophy of making deposits before you make withdrawals. And I use content to make deposits. I won't ask someone for 15 or 20 minutes of their time if I haven't made a deposit. And I use content as a way to add something of value, to be helpful to my potential buyer. Everyone's gotten the content memo, and there's a lot of content being created. And there's a couple questions around how do you ensure that your content is unique enough or compelling enough or interesting enough that people want to actually share the content. And in the same theme, a little layer on top of that, we've got a question from David, and he's saying, how do you keep content fresh if you're covering a fairly niche area? How can you take a different perspective or keep that content fresh if you're really talking about a fairly narrow area? What are some ideas that you guys can share? And I'll start with you, Gaelle.
Well, actually, you just speak about should sales be creating content? And I think that we speak about what are the responsibilities of the marketing regarding content, what are the responsibilities of the sales regarding content. And I think that's really key to know that, okay, marketing is really responsible for creating the content, to actually keeping fresh by, okay, the message, the relevancy of the message. They are the one who are really the most efficient to see, okay, what are the trends for the moment? What are the trends regarding what kind of messages, but also the format of the content is key. It's the message, of course, but how are you going to share it? Of course, there are some pictures, there are videos, but there are everyday new technologies new that are coming up, so that you can also make your content more appealing. It's also to answer David's questions. Of course, you've got freshness of the message is important regarding what we say, but it's also very important how do we bring it to the person. So I think the marketing role in this aspect is key. And of course, what is key for the sales, what is very important is the way that the salespersons will share this content, how efficient it will be. That will also make you set apart from the competition.
Yeah, I think layering on some personality to the sharing. And, I'm all about social, obviously. I love to share content in social, but I also will share content via email. Yeah. And what I do is I use a new tool called Viewed It. Cameron, you may have heard of Viewed It from Vidyard. And it's a Chrome browser plugin. And I'm able to, right from this PC, this Mac, record a video with literally just hit record, and then the tile in the email of the video has either my face, I could use a little whiteboard with the person's name on it. I can actually use their website or their LinkedIn profile as the background, but I can create video and give a quick overview of the recent Altimeter Group report on social and digital sales transformation. And that way I'm taking that piece of content, someone else's content, and I'm not just writing an email, I'm capturing a short video and sending this a content with a video. I can even do that in social. I can record that short little video and share that via social channels. So I think what I'm hearing from both of you too is with curation, what it does is have the system automate the sharing of the content, and not actually putting their perspective or voice, personality, woo woo, winner winner chicken dinner, right? Then that's just filling the social networks with more noise. So personality on top of the content sounds like it's important.
Definitely.
Let's talk about what really matters in sales. Rubber meets the road with revenue. And of content and sharing content in social channels, a lot of sales leaders aren't able to really connect dot from I'm having my reps share content, but what does that do for pipeline and leads and opportunity and deal acceleration? They understand, when a rep makes a call, someone answers it or they don't. If they answer it, they have a good conversation or they don't. They have a good conversation, it leads to a next step. That linear process. They understand my rep sends an email, they get a response or they don't. They send another email, they get a response or they don't. They send another email, they get a response or they don't. That linear concept versus content is much more about fluidity. And it's much more, there's multiplier effect, there's long tail of content, but it for a sales leader, it's I share a piece of content, I get a like or I don't. I share a piece of content, I get it doesn't really fit into that more rigid and linear historical view of selling. So the question is, one, do you agree that this is why sales leaders are having a hard time getting their head around why content sharing is important? But then two, can you cite any examples of companies that have been able to demonstrate, and probably you, Cameron, start this one, companies that have been able to demonstrate that the sharing of content has a direct impact on pipeline and ultimately revenue?
Yeah, I mean, so I would disagree in that I think we have some examples of companies that have been able to basically create that linear path, that linear picture from their social selling efforts. It's not something that is very easy to do right now. It requires data from sources that most people don't have access to, which I can talk about here in a minute. But yeah, I mean, I think, for those that aren't able to draw that linear path right now, I think it's just, again, it's just kind of the basic question of buyers are on all these channels. Do you want your people actually to be able to connect with them, right? I would not want to have to lead a team of technology sellers, who was hamstringed because they, did not have access to LinkedIn, or, weren't permitted to use Twitter, or, even more kind of practical things like, couldn't send texts to prospects. I mean, that is a channel in and of itself, just as phone and email, et cetera is. But to your question about kind of, really getting down to brass tacks, ROI, how are these efforts actually affecting things like pipeline win rate and deal size? One of the better studies that we've seen was put together, again, by this company, Genesis. And this was actually something that they presented at the LinkedIn Sales Connect show in New York last year. And the reason they were able to draw this line was basically they knew all of their reps, what they were sharing. That was something that we could actually tell them was, of the 1,500 or so global sales reps that they had on the platform, what were they sharing? When were they sharing it? Where were they sharing it to? But the data that they were missing, and the data that most companies are missing, is how were all the people on the other end, in particular on LinkedIn, interacting with it? How were were their prospects actually seeing that content? Were they clicking it? Were they liking it? Were they opening those emails that included those, those links in there and so forth? And so LinkedIn basically opened up their data store and gave them complete visibility on the history of prospect interactions with all of this content that was being shared by the Genesis salespeople. And over an 18-month period, so 1,500 people, 18 months, plenty of time and data, they were able to substantiate very meaningful impact in pipeline win rate and deal size, to the tune of roughly those who were engaged in sharing content kind of in their overall social selling practices had pipelines on average 2x bigger than those who didn't. And win rates and deal size increased on the order of about 25 to 40%. So, Dell, I know I was just meeting with them. They're a client of ours last week. They don't like to share a lot of this data, but suffice it to say that over the last few years, they've been able to substantiate similar results in terms of lift on pipeline and win rate. So when you can tie it together, I know everyone wants to find comfort in kind of the end data. We have to have the data in order to legitimize this, but I mean, as with the leaders in most markets, this is just something that really makes sense. And I think, those that have been successful are the ones that have gotten behind it, not necessarily the ones that have access to, all of the most granular data. So. Yeah.
Those are great, compelling statistics that you shared from Genesis work with your platform and their social selling initiative. And I can tell you from what I know, they definitely have cross-functional buy-in, leadership commitment. They really have a lot of the elements that are required to be successful in this new way of being visible and valuable to their learning in the early stage and mid stage and late stage of their buying journey. So great stuff there. Another question that I wanted to ask, in terms of, Gaelle, actionable tips that you have around managing the creation of the content, should it be aligned to buyer journey, buyer persona, stage in the buying process? So the creation of the content, the accessibility of the content, and how to teach salespeople how to share content. So Gaelle, I'd love for you just to comment on really organizing, creating, and teaching salespeople how to share. What are some tips that you can share with the audience?
Well, may I just give an example of a successful company that did something very interesting, I think, that I would like to share with the people who are listening to us today and looking at us today. Because actually in Belgium, the very famous telecommunication company, that's Orange, well, actually what they did, and we could measure the results, because we very concretely could see that their increase, and they could better fill their sales funnel, because the sales rep there, thanks to what I will explain you in a minute, really could increase the number of contacts they get and the number of meetings they get in order to increase their sales funnel. And it's very easy, but I think there are two best practices there. And it will perhaps also help you answer the second question you just asked me. Well, actually there, the marketing team develops what they called snackable content. So actually, twice a week, they shared snackable contents. So they send that to all their sales reps. That's per email, via an email. The title of the email is ambassador email with the title of the post, of the content. And actually there it said, hey, sales guys, thanks to share this post to your via your social platforms, because it will so be very easy for your followers to like, read, and share. So actually the sales guy of this company just have to share. They put on the button, share. They choose the platform, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, by email as well, because you're right, Jill, email is still a very commonly used tool. And they add some comments if they want. It's, of course, encouraged that they add some comments, and then it's shared. So it's very easy. And I think the two best practices are, first of all, well, the content, the snackable content is, okay, it's short, it's easy to read, it's very to the point, and it's super easy for the sales to share it, because that's what I can notice here in, perhaps in particular to Europe, I don't know, but we still have to make some efforts to encourage the salespeople to share. Some they said, but why do I have to share? So actually we have, that's one of our main actually concern is how to make the salespersons understand that it's important for them. It will make them more money. It will make them more successful if they participate in the sharing of content. So,
yeah, I agree on the that sharing of the content. It makes the salespeople more visible to where buyers are learning, and it makes them establish some type of expertise or point of view or knowledge around a particular topic area. So I think it really is important for sales professionals to leverage content, to educate, to engage their potential buyers and their existing customers, for sure. So I love that. Quickly, I just read an article that people are now watching 1 billion hours of YouTube every day. 1 billion hours of YouTube every day. So clearly video is a type of content that people are hungry and thirsty for, and that they love consuming video content. I actually have a question in the chat bar. The Chrome plugin that I use to record my own videos is called Viewedit, VIEWEDIT. So video, you don't have to have high production value video. You can use video as an enhancement to email, an enhancement to your social shares. But clearly, if people are watching a billion hours a day of YouTube, video is something that I encourage everybody to look more closely at. Cameron, what are you seeing in terms of, are you able to track from your platform any metrics related specifically to blog posts, webinars, infographics, ebooks, videos? Do you guys have tracking around the type of content that is being shared?
Yeah, we do. I mean, I think, and we're always looking at kind of like what's getting more engagement versus not. I think one of the questions here just a minute ago was something along the lines of, if a lot of content's getting shared, but it's not necessarily getting a lot of engagement, how do you connect that back with any sort of results, especially as it relates to sales? Like, I'm just kind of shooting things into the void and, not getting any feedback. And, I think that's that's something to really prioritize. I mean, that's certainly something that we encourage everyone we work with to focus on is and understanding every business is different. You know, every team is different, every kind of internal sales culture. But I think always prioritize engagement. So that could be content type. I mean, I think Jill, just as you're saying, you know, video is often thought of, at least historically, as something that, you know, you need really high production value. And like, I'm not a, you know, I don't know, I'm not a TV personality or whatever, but like, you know, the reality is it's a communication mechanism. And if you look at, you know, frankly, the majority of people in regions like APJ, they communicate primarily through audio clips and video. I mean, if you've ever spent any time in China or on a Chinese social network, like, you know, we're kind of in many respects way behind here in this country. So yep. I'm a big fan of video, period. I think, you know, production quality be damned, like just shoot the thing. It's a great way to kind of differentiate yourself. Yeah, I mean, I think just overall, it could be you know, it doesn't even necessarily have to be a piece of content. I think, you know, oftentimes just an interaction with someone, tweeting at someone or commenting on something that they shared, but always shooting for engagement, right? Because that's, at the end of the day, it's like, you know, we're doing this in sales because, you know, we want to produce results in the form of like more business, and that is going to come as the result of the development of these relationships. And, you know, if you're not seeing engagement, you should probably be changing your strategy a bit in terms of content type or how you're approaching it. I'm sure you have thoughts on that too. Yeah,
well, I say to be interesting, be interested.
Yes.
In something other than yourself. And to that, and that's just something that I learned, an expression that I carry with me. My husband wishes I would practice it more with him. To be interesting, be interested. But an example, so as we were recording this, I got a LinkedIn invite personalized, of course, because generic invites are hashtag social stupid. They're hashtag just plain lazy, hashtag first impressions matter, hashtag every impression matters. So don't ever send a generic invite. They're terrible. So I received a personalized invite from a guy named Mike Colella, and I clicked on his Twitter handle from his LinkedIn profile, and it said he's sales and market development exec with extensive background in construction materials. Well, I had just read an article on the construction space and how technology is exploding in that construction space. So while you guys were talking, I wasn't paying attention. Just kidding. I was multitasking, and I sent Mike via Twitter a link to this article about construction. And that has nothing to do with the I don't have anything to do with the construction industry. So why am I sharing content with him about the construction industry? I can't sell him anything. Well, to be interesting, be interested. I'm trying to be helpful. I'm trying to show him that I know him. I'm trying to connect with him on something that he cares about, not just what I care about. And so are there examples more like that, Gaelle, that you can share? Stories of the ways that you're using content in a more creative way, because I think the curating content and sharing content, but some more. I loved how you started with an example. Are there any other examples or stories you want to share? And we're bumping up against time. We've got about 4 minutes left, so if you want to share a story, that'd be great.
Regarding type of content, so innovative content, but not curated content, just or
curated. It just more stories. I like that you're sharing examples of real live what people are doing, what companies you're working with are doing.
Okay, well, but you're totally right. Videos is the thing now. All my clients, they are investing massively in videos because. Well, why? Because it's short, no more than 1 minute. It doesn't take so many efforts for the readers or the viewers to. They doesn't have to analyze the content. They just have a sneak preview, a snapshot of. It's moving, it's dynamic. So that's the kind of things That's really, of course, interesting for them, and in every sector, because I have a customer active in everything what they are controlling electricity, they are controlling big nuclear central, etc. Well, even them, it's not really a sexy company or sexy content, because non-destructive testing is not perhaps the sexiest thing there is. But anyway, we made videos. We could, thanks to LinkedIn, thanks to Facebook, etc. We could really target engineers, etc. And making those videos, we put actually very experts. So we put people, engineers from the companies. We make scenario. So it's really an editorial work. So we really try we ask customer. That's very important to try to, as a B2B company, to ask one of your client, okay, may I go at your place? May I record some things? So this is also things that could work and could be as efficient, because the client is generally very happy to be asked to be on the video. Expert from the company, so testimonials, 1 minute, but it's not so complicated to do. It's just some organization. It's just a kind of organization and anticipation. But that's the kind of things, even if you don't have a sexy product or a sexy company, that's something very, very good. I also have a client who is doing waste management. And they are very, very active. And even also in waste management, well, they are doing a lot of videos as well, pictures as well. They are very, we actually put a very content strategy regarding, okay, the first week, we only share content regarding this type of activity. The second week of the month, this is the strategy that is this type of content that we are sharing. The third week of the month, this is more about, okay, the positioning of the company, whatever. But actually, every weeks we divided the type of content that we want to share, and based on that, we create the content. And videos, it can be testimonials, those kind of things.
Awesome. Yeah, talking about not sexy topics, although Internet of Things and the industrial Internet of Things, I personally find very sexy. SAP has created a series of videos, like explainer videos, with the whiteboarding type approach to explaining these very complicated topics. So you can take something that is not sexy and complicated and create these explainer videos, and extreme value, right? For helping people understand what is IoT, what should I care, why should I care about it? It helped me understand specific examples of it. So I think video does a really nice job of taking complex things and making them simple. With the last couple minutes, Cameron, I want to give you 60 seconds to anything that you want to share. Words of wisdom, inspiration, shout outs, whatever you want to share. You've got 60 seconds, Cameron.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just very exciting. I mean, we're seeing, you know, we've been kind of in this space along, obviously, you know, with you, Jill, you know, for the last few years, and it just is been this continuous march forward where, you know, it's no longer, for instance, tech companies that are taking this very seriously. We have some of our newest clients include a very large nonprofit, a giant commercial real estate company, some staffing agencies, you know, all of whom are putting kind of these practices of social selling to good use. And I think in many ways are almost operating more flexibly than the tech companies, because they're coming from a legacy industry. They see that this change is happening, and, you know, they're more willing to just jump in. And I guess what I would say is, you know, just as you called out, Jill, you know, those that we've seen who've really succeed have really embraced the individual sales rep, and, you know, enable them to make the decisions that they need to be making, given, you know, where they operate, what their role is, who they need to be communicating with. Certainly, corporate and marketing have a role to play to provide field marketing materials and other information and content to be shared, but you know, those who approach it in a holistic manner and, you know, who really embrace kind of the style and personality and encourage that of the individual seem to succeed the most.
Yeah, we live in a whole new world. So if you're trying to control the message and control your people, and not, yeah, I was at an event yesterday, and I'll just wrap it here. The woman from Edelman does an annual trust study. It's called the Trust Barometer, and trust is at an all-time low. And the reality is we don't trust brands. We don't trust your corporate message. We don't trust your sales pitches nearly to the extent that we trust our peers and our colleagues.
Yep.
And so know that your best salespeople aren't on your payroll. They're your customers who are generating massive value from your products and your solutions. And so when you think about content, think about telling your customer stories, and think about how to create excitement around sharing that success. It might really be allowing them to create this content or co-create it with you, not a script of a traditional case study. So anyways, I really want to thank Gaelle and Cameron for your awesome insights today on the role of content and the content conundrum, and your perspective on social selling. I hope that everybody who's participating sends you personalized invites to connect on LinkedIn, follows you on Twitter, and keep the content conversation happening. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thanks. Yeah. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.